Stay your schedule.
Hello art family. For this video I wanted to take a look at sketching on toned paper, multimedia paper with transparent watercolor, and then adding some white gouache to bring in the lighter values. I'm starting out by drawing, and my first main goal is to establish perspective. This is a pretty clear-cut one-point perspective drawing here. You can literally kind of see the train tracks going back into one-point perspective. So I start out with a low kind of eye line, and then find a vanishing point that I can arbitrarily create a sort of grid coming off of it. And then after I figure out roughly the perspective, I'm looking at these big shapes. So one big shape I see is, you can it looks like a knee with it looks like a leg. So the sky key kind of shape is coming in from the upper right, and then it bends down. It looks like a leg and then a foot with a pointed toe. So kind of thinking of things in that way. How can I kind of examine these really large shapes, big puzzle pieces? First, starting with the big puzzle pieces, then we can subdivide to the smaller ones as we go. Now, the complication of working with toned paper is that we're not starting at the lightest value and working our way down darker or thereabouts, as the general rule can be for transparent watercolor. With this, we're starting in a kind of middle light area, and then I like to stain the page with some pigment, like a kind of a light wash across the whole thing, which is going to take us yet a half step deeper in the value. So the key here is that I'm looking for those really big shapes. I'm going to close an eye and squint, and I look for those big shapes, and what I want to do is break this thing up into 4 big shapes of value. I like to think of them as buckets, because we're taking and comparing and contrasting these different values, and we're asking ourselves, is it lighter, is it darker, and I'm placing these in these buckets. There's the really light with additional white, then there's the paper itself, or stained paper. Then we go a step darker for things like the large cast shadow, and then level 4 is just no water, straight tube watercolor. And for the really rich darks, I use ultramarine and burnt umber. I go 50-50 first, which goes to about black, and then I will pitch that back and forth 60-40 to go a little bit warmer dark or a little cooler dark, depending on if it's an area where light is kind of bouncing into, or if it's an area that's facing up and towards the sky, which is going to catch some of that resonant sort of ambient light that's pulling across the scene in the shadow. It's not strong enough to compete with the lit side, of course. If we close an eye and squint, I'm seeing a lot of big shadow shape, and then I'm seeing the sky as one big shape that's quite light. And then our lit area, we have just that corner of the building that faces towards the light source, is going to be our lightest area in the scene. So I'm using some white now in the blue, and it takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of patience to get it smooth like this. There's not really any clouds to speak of, so I want a nice gentle gradation. I'm using that white because I really want that to pop out and be very luminescent and have that nice kind of glow to it. And I start with kind of more white towards the base of the sky, some of it being neat white, and then I can blend into that with some blue, and it gets a little redder blue towards the top, kind of cobalt blue, maybe a little ultramarine as it gets towards the top. I get the 2 big shapes, and then I kind of bring them together, and I try to very gently pull the brush across the top, sometimes with a sort of diagonal motion, very gently pulling to try to loosen up and blend those 2 together. So now that we have the middle and then the very darks established, and we have scale established as well, having some smaller shapes to contrast against the bigger shapes that are in the scene, we can bring in the light value now. It's mostly white with a little bit of yellow ochre, so it's not too cold, and I can start to pull in those shapes. I want to observe, though, that the face of the building facing towards us or over our shoulder is actually a little bit darker than the actual side getting hit with the full force of the light. So because we stained the page, I can leave that sort of that stained yellow ochre. I probably should have had a little more burnt sienna or something in it to kind of give variety, but I can bring in just the lights in the areas that are facing towards the light source and kind of try to bring home that feeling of the presence of the ambient light source in the scene and the environment that we're looking at. So that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you watching it, and I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, happy sketching.